and the board chair of 10,000 women. And I'm inspired that our conversations from the sponsors of two people who Roadshow. We're having to work with a number of organizations, including the Bible President to representing by Anderson, one of the live stream today. There's individuals across the state, individuals exposure. We even have representatives of Baton Rouge.
Is it possible that you just come to the front of the stage and talk and try it without the microphone?
Yeah.
You got a voice, you can hear that. You gotta have it.
Okay, can you hear me now? All that technology, what can I say? Okay. Well, let's make some lemonade, y'all. Thank you for being here. You know, we're here today with 10,000 women, with the Indivisibles, with Bayou Progressive, with the Forum for Equality, with the Democratic LGBTQ Caucus, as well as local partners that are displaying tables out in the foyer. So I hope you've had a chance to go by and get all the great material that the League of Women Voters has on the closed primary and elections and who's on the ballot. We've got Allendale Strong. We've got representatives from the various candidates. We've got LAA, Frances Kelly and her crew that have just done an amazing job working on some of the most critical issues around immigration and detention, 10,000 women. And so, you know, we're just glad that you're here with us tonight, because the reason we're doing these road shows around the state is that there's not enough attention on the May 16th primary. So how many of y'all know somebody who doesn't even know there's an election coming up? Okay. So we really thought that we have some wonderful Democratic candidates. This is our first year in Louisiana to have a closed primary system. So you've got one election for the Republicans, one election for the Democrats. If you're registered for no party, you can vote in either election, but you have to vote in the May 16th election and the June 27th runoff if you pick either Democrat or Republican. And if you ask for a mail-in ballot and you got the wrong ballot, I want to encourage you to call the registrar of voters. Several folks have come up to me and said that they were generally get a mail-in ballot, but they didn't get the right ballot. And so I'm really concerned about election integrity and making sure that we all have the right to vote. Because at the end of the day, all of these groups are coming together to help protect democracy, to talk about the value of voting and to talk about the value of encouraging our friends and neighbors and family members to get out and vote. And so really, we've got some wonderful candidates to be here with us today. We've got a really good format. This is our third event. We've done an event in Lafayette and Baton Rouge. We're doing Shreveport tonight. We'll do Ruston tomorrow night. We'll do Monroe on Thursday night. Then we'll head south and do another event in Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, Houma, Covington, and Hammond. And so we really are trying to create an opportunity for these candidates to get around the state and meet the voters, and also an opportunity for the voters to meet the candidates. And so our format tonight is essentially 3 panels. So we'll start with a panel of our Senate candidates. They'll open with an introductory statement, and then our moderator, Jeff Beamfor, with, y'all give Jeff a round of applause. Okay? And he's got a set of questions. All the candidates will answer each question, okay? We're going to try and keep the Senate round to about 45 minutes. Then we'll let the senators, potential senators, get off the stage. We'll have our congressional candidates, and then we'll finish with our public service candidates. And then at the end, we'll take some questions from the audience. So if you wanted to ask a question, you needed to put it on an index card, because we can't ask all the questions. We will select a few of the questions from the audience. And we're really excited tonight that we have all 3 Senate candidates, Nick Alvarez, Gary Crockett and Jamie Davis here with us tonight. We've got Conrad Cable here running for the 4th Congressional District. Matt Gromlich was here for a little while during registration, but had a conflict, so he won't be here. And then we've got Austin Lawson and Reverend James Green for the Public Service Commission. So hopefully this will be an informative and interesting experience to hear directly from our candidates. Jeff's got some great questions, and I think it's going to be a really informative evening. Now, we are going to try and keep the candidates limited to very short answers. And so I want to just give a shout out to my good friend Lori Lyons, who's taken on the unenviable task of holding up the cards to say shush to politicians. And but if anybody can get their attention, I'm sure Lori can do it. And so I just want to again say thank you to all the members of the planning committee, to the candidates, to you in the community who've come out to be with us today. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jeff as our moderator for the event tonight. So let's get Jeff.
You all hear me?
Yeah.
I wish I could use this, but it's a television mic. So we're live streaming our own live stream. All right, so we're going to start with by introducing our Senate candidates for tonight. First of all, I appreciate all of you being here this evening. As you heard Melissa say, this is a series of these events to the people, for the people. They're considering this to be more along the lines of a town hall or a forum as opposed to a debate. You heard all the sponsors that were listed. So let's go ahead and bring our Senate candidates up. We'll bring them up one at a time. We'll do it in alphabetical order. And as they come up, feel free to give them a round of applause. Let's start with Nick Alvarez. How you doing, Nick? There's too many mics here, man. I wish they all work. All right, Gary Crockett, come on up. And Jamie Davis. Hey, Jamie. Doing well. All right, guys, we're going to start with opening statements. Go ahead and have a seat. And we'll do this in alphabetical order. You'll have 90 seconds for your opening statement. And we'll start with Nick Alvarez. Nick?
All right, this one. Yeah, this one's good. No? Okay. All right. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Alvarez, and I'm running for the United States Senate. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 3 wonderful, rambunctious boys who normally would be with me, but they're back home in New Orleans taking their LEAP tests. And I've dedicated my career to fighting for Louisiana families. I've spent my professional life making government work for people, connecting policy to real-world results so families can access reliable health care, stable housing, and support services when they need them most. Now, I'm running for Senate to protect health coverage for the 300,000 Louisianans who would lose coverage if the cuts from the big, ugly bill go into effect. And you know what? They put that into effect January 1st, 2027. We got to remind people healthcare is on the ballot this fall. Now, I worked for Governor Edwards as a policy advisor, and I'm proud to have expanded Medicaid with Governor Edwards and to fight for it in the legislature when Republicans tried to slash it. This is a fight that I've been in before and won. That's why I'm honored and proud to be with you tonight to continue the fight for affordable health care, to continue the fight for housing access, to continue the fight for an affordable Louisiana for every family. I'm so grateful to be with you. Thank you all tonight.
All right, next up is Gary Crockett. Gary, you have 90 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Gary Crockett. I'm originally from Tallulah, Louisiana, which is not that far away from here. It's a pretty impoverished town, but was still a shining light for me as I grew up. I currently live in New Orleans. I'm a 24-year retired Navy veteran. In addition to that, I have 2 degrees and own 4 companies. I'm running because on both sides of the aisle, our leadership has lost the way. I believe that Louisiana should be more affordable than it has been. I believe that we should have better jobs. I also believe that we should have health care. And I believe that the health care that we should have is the same health care that the senators and representatives have.
Yes.
In addition to that, we need a safe Louisiana where our children and loved ones can walk the streets without thinking of being harmed. I'm very practical. I'm not a politician. This is the first time I've ever run for office, and I'm doing it for the people. Thanks for listening to me today.
All right, to wrap up our opening statement round, we'll go to Jamie Davis. Jamie, 90 seconds.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank each and every one of you all for coming out tonight. I'm Jamie Davis, a farmer from Tensall Parish, and I want to tell you how a farmer ends up standing before you as the endorsed candidate for the Louisiana Democratic Party for the U.S. Senate. Washington keeps spending millions trying to find out how to talk to rural and working people. I don't have to figure that out. I am one of them. I'm a 3rd-generation farmer, a grandson of a sharecropper. I signed the front and the backs of checks. I know what it means to fight for what you deserve. And I'm the neighbor of the party that has been trying to reach people for years. I got into this race with no political connections and no big donors. Just one simple belief. Somebody has to stand up and say, this just ain't right. So I decided that someone would be me. Here's what I know. The path back to power runs through the South, and Louisiana can help lead the way. From the Delta to the Gulf Coast, from Shreveport to New Orleans, people are joining this movement, not because of a party label, but because we're talking about what matters at home: affordability, education, healthcare, and accountability. This campaign is built on values people can feel and leadership people trust. I'm not asking you to support a candidate. I'm asking you to support a movement that put Louisiana families first. I'm excited to talk about what we can build in Louisiana and what we deserve. One.
Go ahead and finish out your final thought.
Yes, sir. One that we all can afford.
Very distinctly done. All right, we'll start with our questioning now. The first subject area deals with data centers, utility costs, and environmental impacts. We'll start this first round with, again, in alphabetical order, then we'll start mixing up the order here. So we'll start this first round with Nick Alvarez. Nick, Northwest Louisiana, now at the center of a major new AI and data center push. The state leaders celebrating the scale of the investment, but people here have seen the patterns before. Communities get promised economic opportunities and transformation while the public is left to worry about the utility costs, high utility costs, environmental strains, and whether the jobs ever truly match the hype. So here's the question. As a senator, what federal standards, incentives, or protections would you support to make sure that the data center growth does not leave Louisiana families subsidizing private winning job returns? Go ahead, Nick.
So that's a really important question. Thank you for that. With AI data centers, we need to make sure that communities are at the center, because corporations should not be able to come into communities and ravage natural resources, send utility prices through the roof, and waste natural resources. So what we need are federal safeguards to ensure that community has a voice in every project that comes into a community. And what that means is that companies pay not just their fair share, but a fair share plus. They need to take on all the costs of any energy usage. If a community says an AI data center can come in, it needs to bring local jobs, and it needs to take care of all of the energy and not defile our precious environment. That is critically important. And it's something that I will work on as a United States Senator, because look, AI has become an arms race across the world. And we need to make sure that we have safeguards in place that don't allow other nefarious actors to take advantage of weaknesses in our technological grid. And so it's critical that we have the technology and the resources, but that it's done in a way that respects our communities and puts our communities at the center along with our environment.
All right, we'll move to Gary Crockett. Gary, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. As a senator, what federal standards, incentives, or protections would you support to make sure data center growth does not leave Louisiana families subsidizing private expansion through higher bills, weaker safeguards, or disappointing job returns?
There's only so much that we can do on the federal level, but one of the things that we can do, we can, just like we have regulations for nuclear power plants, we can do the same thing for data centers. Nuclear power plants are not put in our backyards. The same should be true for data centers. At the end of the day, a typical data center only creates between 50 and 100 permanent jobs. That is not worth the noise, the energy consumption, and pollution that comes with it. So what we need on the federal level is regulations, monitoring, and governance. That should be the first thing. And none of them should be in populated areas. When you look at data centers around the country, you will see them in some mountains, or you will see them in population areas that aren't dense. The same should be for here in Louisiana. On the local level, we have to make sure that before we allow a company to come in to do business, when they get their business license, that they adhere to the standards that we need, or we can have our own local regulations as well. But I would do all within my power to fight for the people of Louisiana to make sure those standards are put in place.
All right, Jamie, would you like me to repeat the question again?
No.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. So it's simple for me. I live in rural Louisiana, and I feel that data centers prey on impoverished people. They need a boost to their economy, and you hear all of the bells and whistles of what this data center is going to do for your community. And the people need a boost. We're looking for a reason to do better, and we want to do better. So you accept the bright, shiny deal. But when it turns out the bright, shiny deal comes along with companies that bring all of their people with them, we don't get that many jobs out of a data center because, like I said, when they sign the deal, the companies that's coming to build that thing got their people coming right along with them. It'd be a handful of people that get to go to work there, but it's not what we think about. But here is what's real about it. Data centers must pay for what they do. You can't come into our communities and raise the bills on the citizens, period. You must protect our precious resources because we only have one. When our source of drinking water is gone, what are we going to drink? We must hold them accountable with regulations that are strong. And when it comes to new ones being built,
Finish it out.
when it comes to new ones being built, They must have research done to make sure that you know the standards of the data center.
Okay. All right, Jamie, take a deep breath, because we're going to start with you on this next question.
Okay.
Do a reverse order.
All right.
All right, this, the broad question here is about ITEP, bait and switch development model. ITEP is only one expression of a deeper Louisiana habit, giving powerful industries favorable treatment upfront based on promises of jobs and growth that too often don't materialize at the scale people were led to expect. Under Governor Landry's rules, job creation requirements were weakened, local control was reduced. What's your broader philosophy? This is your question.
Yep.
What's your broader philosophy on corporate subsidies, tax incentives, and public-private development deals? And how would you work in the Senate to push Louisiana and the country toward a model that delivers actual public returns?
First off, if you send Jamie Davis to Washington, just remember this one thing. I'm not going for me. I'm going for you and our future. And here is where the rubber meets the road. How are we going to ever be able to rebuild Louisiana the way that it needs to be rebuilt if every opportunity for a company to come into our communities, we give them a method of not paying their fair share? That's what this is all about. You want to come to work in Louisiana and want to eat the fruit of Louisiana? You need to pay your fair share. No different than the rest of us. It is ridiculous for companies to come to our state and pay less taxes than we do. Until you can only send somebody that know how that works, because of course, I use the tax breaks in my farm operation also. So I know what it's like to not pay your fair share. The only way we can rebuild this state is everybody got to pay. Tax breaks have to go. We need incentives for people to come here, but we can't give away the farm just to have an opportunity for somebody to come to Louisiana and we get nothing out of the deal.
All right, let's move on to Gary Crockett. Gary, you'd like me to repeat the question or no?
Yes, please repeat.
All right. Question is, what's your broader philosophy on corporate subsidies, tax incentives, and public-private development deals? And how would you work in the Senate to push Louisiana and the country toward a model that delivers actual public return?
So my broader philosophy on subsidies for corporations is that I have a problem with current leadership calling what goes to the people entitlements. They call Social Security an entitlement, even though it came out of each check that you work for. I feel that it's time for the system to start working for the people that work. Meaning that corporate welfare should stop. These companies are receiving subsidies who have never put into the system to begin with, unlike those that receive Social Security benefits that they have worked for. I feel that every subsidy that is received in the state of Louisiana and across this country should be based upon return. There should be some return on the investment. In other words, if a company doesn't produce the number of jobs that they have projected, they should not receive the tax break. If they project 1,000 jobs, but only create 15 or 100, that tax break should be based upon that 15 or 100 jobs. It's time to hold them accountable in a practical way.
All right, let's go to Nick. Nick, do you need to repeat?
I think I've got it. Thank you. Yeah. What we have right now too often is a race to the bottom because states have to compete to have as many giveaways as possible to get industry to come into place. And what that means is we skew the actual economic development that should be happening, because it's about these giveaways and tax breaks as opposed to where development ought to really occur based upon the natural resources or the strengths of any given community. And so I think that federal action is really necessary here, because otherwise states will continue to have this incentive to just compete against one another and to provide as many giveaways as possible. Now, when we have these incentives, we need to make sure that there is a true return, that there are metrics that are held to. And you mentioned the ITEP program, and during Governor Edwards' administration, we put in safeguards to make sure that there was local control and that there were true job creation metrics that companies were held to. And I think that at a federal level, we need to use that philosophy to ensure that people are really getting and communities are getting that return. We need to put in place project labor agreements with labor. I'm proud to be endorsed by the AFL-CIO of Greater New Orleans and to be recommended as the candidate for the AFL-CIO here in Shreveport. We need labor at the center of this, because the jobs need to be good jobs, union jobs, and ones that truly support the thriving of communities.
All right, for our next question, we will start with Gary Crockett. Broad category here is public safety, guns, and the Cedar Grove mass shooting here in Shreveport. Shreveport is still grieving the Cedar Grove mass shooting in which 8 children were killed. That was on April 19th. In a moment like this, voters don't want just sympathy. They want to know whether leaders are prepared to act. So here's your question. What do you believe the federal government should do now on guns and public safety? And how do you talk about prevention, accountability, and community safety in a way that rises above the usual talking points? Here.
Right. So I really don't have time to respond. First of all, on the federal level, there needs to be accountability concerning gun control. I believe that every citizen has a right to own a gun, but it must be done in a very responsible way. Along with that, we need to take responsibility for ourselves. What I mean by that is, I think it's very important that we get our cars checked all the time. We have the oil check, we check our tires. It's time for us to do some mental checkups as well. I believe that every man, along with his regular physical, should also get a mental health check. And that is for the good of that man and his family. The only way that we can have a strong family is that we have a strong man, and he needs to check that. Along with that, when we do the background checks, one of the things that is left out is those people that have some mental illness or need some mental help. I think this is a very critical time that we make sure that we check to make sure that there are guidelines in place, that we look at those situations to make sure that we don't put guns in the hands of those that may go back and harm their families or their neighbors. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Nick Alvarez. Nick, you need me to repeat the question or not?
No, I've got it. Thank you, Jeff. First of all, my heart goes out to the family of those children that were lost and the entire Shreveport community. As a father, it's hard to fathom the loss. And as someone who personally has been shot at in my home, I know the reality that faces too many communities and too many people throughout the state of Louisiana. It was the middle of the night when somebody who shot up my neighbor's car then turned the gun towards my home when I was at the front door. And 7 rounds came through the house, missing me and my wife by 3 feet. That person is now in a mental health facility where there should have been mental health treatment on the front end, and there should have been policies in place to make sure that that person never had a gun to begin with. And so I believe we need to close all the loopholes that exist in background check laws. We need to make sure that we have red flag laws in place so that we can identify people who are a risk to society or to themselves. And we also need to provide incentives for people to have safe storage for their weapons, because we need to have, a colleague of mine had a child shot and killed because They were playing with a gun. And we have too many guns that are not able to be secured. And so we need to have tax incentives at the federal level so that people can store them safely. We need to take this on head on because it's critically important for our society.
All right, Jamie Davis, need to repeat the question or not?
No, sir. This gun violence thing hit the state of Louisiana almost like an epidemic because it happened in Shreveport twice, and then it happened in Baton Rouge. Of course, we need health care for people, mental states. You break an arm or a leg, somebody think you really hurt. Well, your brain is an organ just like your legs and arms are. So how do we have healthcare rules that are different for your brain than actually for your physical body? It's real and it's happening, and people need help because we all know I'm a father and I cannot even talk about harming my own child. We have to have compassion for people, but there also needs to be rules and regulations with gun control, safe background checks. It's tough, and it's really tough to talk about because I can only imagine what the family is going through, all parts of the family, including the person that did the shooting. Can you imagine what his family or their family is going through? Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next broad category, which is juvenile justice. Gary Crockett, you'll start this round. In Shreveport, as in other cities across Louisiana, too many young people are being pulled into serious violence. Public conversation often swings between denial and pure punishment. So here's your question. What do you believe the federal rules should be in juvenile justice, and what should be done differently to prevent young people from reaching that point in the first place, while still addressing the immediate concerns of communities living with violence now?
First of all, our current leadership always cries about budget issues. We were able to go to war at the drop of a dime to spend over $1 million a year. A day. When it comes to our youth, we're talking about our future. And the actions we take tell them exactly what we think of them and what we think of our future. Louisiana imprisons more people than any other place on this globe. That's a huge statement to our young people. There are programs that we can put in place to direct them into other directions, whether it's trades, whether it's other interests. And it would be a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend just on this war alone. On the federal side, we need to have standards that are tough to make sure that our kids have some discipline, but also fair. These standards should go across all states because we have to build this country better, but the only way that we can build a better Louisiana and a better country is by taking care of our youth and giving them a form of discipline that will elevate them, not just hold them down.
All right, let's move on to Jamie Davis. Jamie?
Yes, sir. For me, I got a question for you all. How do you expect a child to thrive when you legislate to cut everything away from their homes? You take everything away from their home, but yet and still you ready at the drop of the hat to invest your checkbook in places to store people, to lock them up. But you take everything to make them a better human being. I was raised in a way that it taught me how to become a man. Every child don't have that same opportunity. The way times are right now, mothers are doing the very best they can. And when they fall short, they're looking for help from anywhere they can get it. And if they can't get it from their communities and their church, the federal government needs to step up. You can't take everything away from a family and expect for a child to succeed. You need to give them after school programs. You need to give them a reason to want to be in school so they can succeed. That goes for all children. Trades, auto mechanics, give a child an opportunity to succeed in school so that they don't want to go down a path that ends up with them into a cage. Thank you.
And let's wrap up this round of juvenile justice with Nick Alvarez. Nick?
So I believe that we need to end the school to prison pipeline. Period. And that starts with how we provide discipline in schools and how we provide resources in schools. Because when kids are expelled or suspended or treated with harsh punishment, or the police are called at school, it sets kids on a pathway that creates a cycle of imprisonment and recidivism and behaviors that are not ones that support life in community. And so I want to point to an amazing example of a different route. It's a program here in Shreveport that Volunteers of America runs. Volunteers of America is where I've worked for the past 6 years. It's called Communities in Schools. And it works to wrap students with those wraparound supports that they need to thrive. But that program doesn't receive federal funding. But that's what we need. We need to set our priorities right. And we need to demand that billionaires pay their fair share. Because when we do, then we're able to provide funding for communities and schools. We're able to provide funding for early childhood education, which we know is going to impact kids for their life all the way to adulthood. And we can invest in all the things that we know can create thriving children, thriving families.
Okay, our next broad category is foreign policy and war powers. And we'll start this round with Jamie Davis. The Senate has a direct role in war powers, military, and America's broader posture abroad. At a time when presidents of both parties have stretched military authority, and Congress has often failed to reassert itself. Here's your question, Jamie. What is your standard for when the United States should use force? And what role do you believe the Senate should play in checking the executive branch on the question of war and peace?
Very simple. Follow, this is going to be the shortest answer of the night. Get the congressional consent from Congress. Open, shut.
That's it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
We're just basically following the Constitution. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Nick Alvarez. Nick?
So the Congress must do its duty to, under the War Powers Act, to determine whether we go to war or not. And I think that that standard ought to be based upon protecting Americans, protecting our homeland. And right now, what we have is, for the majority of my life, military adventurism abroad that needs to end. It needs to end. Because right now we're spending $1 billion a day sending munitions into Iran. Since that war began, gas prices here in Louisiana have gone up more than 40%. More than 40%. We need to hold the executive branch accountable. Congress is just lying over. It's not doing its job. And if I am your senator, I am going to make sure that I do my job and hold the executive branch accountable, because Congress is the one that decides whether or not we go to war, period. So it needs to be focused on whether we can defend the homeland, and these military adventures need to stop across the globe, because the president said about 11 months ago in Iran that the nuclear program had been, quote, obliterated. Went into this without any plan, without any stated goals, and no exit strategy. So if we're going to go into a conflict, we need from the executive clear goals, clear priorities, and clear explanation to the American people for why it's necessary, and then how we're going to get out.
Gary Crockett, do you need to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay. Question is this: what is your standard for when the United States should use force? What role do you believe the Senate should play in checking the executive branch on the questions of war and peace?
Well, I feel that it's time for the United States to get out of the war business and back into the defense business. It's time to make sure that when we say America first, that's exactly what it means, which means defending our homeland, not going to war for anyone else. When I look at the over $3.8 billion that we give Israel each year, that can be used for other purposes. When I look at the fact that we just went to war because Israel asked us to, where we did not have an interest, it's time to get out of that business. Now, the current president told us that we were going into the war business. He said he's changing it from Department of Defense to Department of War. And those that we sent to represent us in leadership, just let that go. That will not happen under my watch. As a 24-year Navy veteran, having more experience than our current Secretary of War, I will put these things back in check. Thank you.
All right, our next broad area of questioning comes from healthcare and elder care. In Northwest Louisiana, healthcare access is already fragile for many families, and elder care is becoming among the quiet crises, putting pressure on households from every direction. And we're starting with this one with you, Nick. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that to begin with. Here's your question. What would be your first federal priority to improve healthcare access and affordability in this region? And what would you do specifically for families struggling to care for aging parents and relatives?
That's an important question, and it's one for me that's not hypothetical. As I mentioned, during Governor Edwards' administration, we expanded Medicaid, which brought health coverage to 500,000 people here in Louisiana. That meant people were able to access primary care, behavioral health, and cancer screenings. I was at a forum the other night in New Iberia, and someone came up to me afterwards and told me, Medicaid expansion saved my life. And she got teary-eyed and shared how if it wasn't for the Medicaid expansion, she wouldn't have been able to afford the medication that she needed. She wouldn't have been able to afford the treatment that she needed. And so, number one, I will work to reverse the $1 trillion of cuts to Medicaid that they put in place that are slated to go into effect January 1st of next year. Number two, I will work to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, and I will work with anyone to expand Medicaid even further and expand Medicare so that we can cover long-term care under these programs for our aging population. Because for far too many people, they have to drain their savings in order to just have a dignified place for parents and older adults. So we need these expansions in place, and that's something I've done in the past, and that's something I'll fight for in the United States Senate.
All right, next up will be Jamie Davis. Jamie?
Yes, I will protect and improve the American Care Act and Medicaid expansion. What's near and dear to me is rural hospitals, because I live in an area where after January 1, there's 18 hospitals in Congressional District 5, is where I reside. If those cuts happen, 3 hospitals around my home will close, which would mean that my family would have 70 miles to trek for an emergency. So those are the kind of cuts with rural health care is near and dear to me, because you shouldn't have to live in a certain zip code to get health care. I would also stand and support mental health and also reproductive health for women. That's an issue that men don't have no business tampering with. That should be between a woman, her husband, if she have one, and whomever she answers to spiritually, if there's someone that she answers to. Thank you.
Let's wrap this round up with Gary Crockett. Want me to repeat it, Gary? All right, here's the question. What would be your first federal priority to improve healthcare access and affordability in this region? And what would you do specifically for families struggling to care for aging parents and relatives?
The first thing that I would do is I would use numbers and statistics to show us with geofencing also where we need to have clinics, where we need to have hospitals, and make sure that everyone has some type of access. Not the same level of hospital in every area, but make sure that there's a trauma center within a reasonable distance. And in addition to that, make sure that there are doctors or nurse practitioners in every area where we can get regular routine care. The other thing I would do is make sure that we don't have the waste that we've had in the past. Unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle, that happens, sometimes to the tune of 1.2 billion. I would only want dollars spent where it actually touches the patient. I would make sure that those that are receiving payments where they haven't seen patients, that they will be taken care of concerning that fraud. In addition to these things, it's time for us to have better care in general. It's time for us to take responsibility and teach our neighbors how to be more responsible for taking care of our health. These are the things that I would do to increase healthcare on the federal level, as well as right here in Northwest Louisiana.
All right, we're moving right along with our Senate section of this forum. We have one more question. We'll end that, and then we'll end this section with the closing statements from each candidate. This last question is about affordability. We'll start with you, Nick. Across Northwest Louisiana, people feel like the basics are getting harder to afford even when they're doing everything right. Here's the question. What do you believe is the single biggest driver of economic insecurity right now? And what would be the first thing that you would fight for in Washington to make everyday life more affordable?
Wow, it's hard to pick a single driver because I think it's so multifaceted. You know, we've talked about healthcare, and to me, that's a huge piece. And look, whether you receive health coverage through Medicaid or not, if people lose Medicaid coverage, that's going to raise prices for everyone, because people will end up going to the emergency department, and which is the costliest place to receive health coverage. And that means all of our premiums will go up as those costs are spread out amongst everyone. So I also feel like we need to do more on the wage side. The minimum wage is $7.25 in 2026. It could have a driver's license here in Louisiana at 16 years old. And so I believe we need to more than double the minimum wage and then index it to inflation when costs go up. And again, we need to demand that billionaires pay their fair share so that we can invest in early childhood education, so that every family can afford childcare assistance, so that we can have a universal national paid family and sick leave program. And we need to end, again, this military adventurism to bring down the cost of gas. So right now there are multiple drivers, not to mention the trade war that the president has gotten us in. So it takes accountability, and it takes all of these issues.
Gary Crockett, you're up next. Want to repeat?
No, not this time.
Okay.
First of all, there should be a minimum wage of $15 an hour. Number two, it's time for Louisiana to stop being the nation's dumping ground. We need new industry. We've had enough of the chemicals and the petrol polluting our state. When I look at other states where I've lived, like Alabama and Georgia, there are plenty of car manufacturers. It's time for Louisiana to have car manufacturers and other types of industry here that don't pollute, but also have higher wages. We can't rely on tourism anymore. We can't rely on New Orleans anymore. It's time to build better by bringing on innovation, teaching our kids to create new things. All of that would bring more income into this state, which would also bring affordability into the state for the same reason. Thanks.
All right, Jamie Davis.
Yes, sir. For me, I'm a guy that shoots for the stars and hope I land on the moon. So for me, I would like and would support a minimum wage of $17.50. I would also work and bring a bill that instead of corporate welfare, we've collected billions in tariffs money. Every one of you out there paid into those tariffs, because when you buy goods that had a tariff assessed to it, why don't you get some of that welfare that they've been issuing out to folks? Just a couple of days, an airline company asked for money for fuel. But can we, the citizens of America and Louisiana, can we go and ask for a welfare check for these companies? So here it is. I would push for a bill that dispersed that tariff money to the people that actually paid for it. And also, I would push hard for small business loans and grants for businesses, so that businesses will be able to afford to give their employees better wages and better incentives to work for those companies. That's my answer. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our questions. We're going to have closing statements now. Jamie, I was going to start with you, but I'm going to give you a break since you just finished.
All right.
Let's go back and start in alphabetical order from the top, the way we started this section. Closing statements, you have 90 seconds each. We'll begin with Nick Alvarez. Nick?
So I got into this race because on the Republican side, I felt like everyone was tripping over one another, fighting each other to see if they could become closest to the president. And my promise to you is that I'm going to be fighting to be closest to you, the people of Louisiana. I believe in a political philosophy that's simple. Every person has dignity. Every person is important. and our public policies ought to reflect that. So Democrats, I believe that we can win in November when we unite around our democratic values, which I believe are shared values, because I think that everybody wants to step outside onto a safe street. Everyone wants to breathe clean air and drink clean water. Everyone wants their kids to go to good schools with highly trained, well-compensated teachers, and everybody wants to work with dignity and fair wages. So I've spent my 20-year career fighting for these policies, not just talking about it, but putting them in place. I believe that I'm the candidate that can go toe-to-toe with Cassidy, Letlow, or Fleming on policy, and I'm ready to get to work on day one.
All right, closing statement, Gary Crockett.
Thanks for listening to me today. So to tell you more about me, growing up in Tallulah, there were times when we didn't have everything that we needed. Couldn't even think about wants. And right now, in many of our homes, they're going through the same thing. I remember my mom 3 times putting bicycles on layaway, only having to go back and put them back. Some don't know what layaway is today, but they know how tough it is. Despite all of those tough times, I was able to graduate from high school, get 2 degrees, go into the Navy, spend 24 years fighting for you, me, and our families, start 4 companies that are successful. And in 2005, all of my employees were making $15 an hour to start. No one could make less than that. What I'm telling you is that send me to the Senate. You're going to send someone who's been fighting, will continue to fight. My name is Gary Crockett. All I wanted was a bicycle.
Closing statement, Jamie Davis.
I'm Jamie Davis, a farmer and business owner from Tensall. And I'm asking for your vote because I'm not running on purpose. I'm running on proof. As vice president of parish government, I fought to get employees their first raise in years because hard work deserves dignity. I fought to keep our ambulance service in our parish because when a family dials 911, help needs to come. I negotiated to keep our clinic and dentist open because health care should not depend on your zip code. I kept waste pickup affordable, balanced budgets, respected taxpayer dollars, completed the Texas Lane Road project in waterproof, and fought for courthouse renovations to keep our courthouse safe and secure. In small town government, there's nowhere to hide. If a road is bad, people know about it. If the ambulance don't come, people know about it. If the budget fails, people know about it. That's the difference in this race. I'm the only candidate voters have already trusted with their roads, their health care, their tax dollars, and whether help comes when they dial 911. I'm Jamie Davis, number 3 on your ballot, the Louisiana Democratic Party endorsed candidate for the United States Senate. We must be the engineers of our own future. We have an opportunity in unity for one Louisiana. Join us at jamieforlouisiana.com and let's build a Louisiana we all can afford. Thank you.
That concludes the Senate portion of the program. Take a couple minutes, we'll reset the stage, we'll bring up Conrad Cable, the candidate District 4. Give all our Senate candidates.
You don't need to your hand as well. You say you're great. You doing all right?
All right, folks, we're going to get started with the conversation with the Conrad Cable. He is a candidate for the United States Congress, the District 4. Conrad, we're going to let you have 90 seconds for your opening statement, so go right ahead.
I've been criticized for being loud, but this seems like the perfect opportunity to use the voice that God gave me. So, my name is Conrad Cable. I'm the farmer from Farmerville, Louisiana, and I'm running for Congress in Louisiana's 4th Congressional District because I believe that we deserve more, not less, and we deserve better representation than what we've been getting from Speaker Mike Johnson. Because Mike Johnson, with all of the power that he has as the 3rd most powerful person in this country, first he betrayed our real Louisiana values by acting like a bad neighbor, by ripping food away from hungry kids' mouths and closing our rural hospitals. Then he betrayed our American values by being a sycophant to Donald Trump and every illegal activity that this out-of-control executive branch has done during the last 2 years. I am ready to take the grit and determination and work ethic that I learned by being a first-generation farmer to bring authenticity and transparency back to Washington because we deserve to be represented by a member of the working class, not the Epstein class. We have everything, or we have so much work to do, but at the end of the day, I believe organized people beat organized money.
All right, time. All right, well, let's get into our questions. You tell me if I should ask this first one. It has a lot to do with Mike Johnson. You kind of made your feelings known on that already, but we'll do it anyway. You're running the represented district, currently represented by the Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson's influence in Washington is real. But so are the questions about whether that influence is translated into stronger representation and better outcomes for Northwest Louisiana. Here's the question. What's your honest assessment of Mike Johnson's job performance, and where do you believe he's failed or succeeded? For the people of his district, I think I might know what you're going to say.
Well, my opinion doesn't matter, but the opinion of the constituents of this district, that's what matters. And whenever I talk to folks out on the campaign trail, I ask Republican, Democrat, no party voters, what has Mike Johnson done for this district? And nobody has given me a good answer, because he has forgotten about this district because he serves the special interests who fund his campaign. He does not serve the special interest of the hardworking people of this district who sent him to Washington. I believe that Speaker Mike Johnson could do so much for our district. We could be growing at an incredible rate, but he doesn't have the backbone to stand up for not only the Constitution, but the people of this district. And I can get into the ways that he has left us behind. The main way starts with the big, ugly bill, cutting healthcare in this state, 14 rural hospitals in this district, and nobody is having a conversation about our rural health clinics. 30% decrease to SNAP benefits. That affects 500,000 children in this state. And I maybe have more empathy than other people. It makes me sick to lay in my bed at night and think about children going hungry. It's unacceptable. Not to mention the affordability crisis that he has not addressed by standing up to Donald Trump's illegal tariffs or these illegal foreign adventure wars like what the Senate candidates just talked about.
Time. Need to ramp up the energy a little bit.
I'm fired up, man. These guys pissed me off. Are y'all mad? Yeah!
All right, the next question deals with infrastructure, really.
Let's do it.
Roads, infrastructure, I-49, Port of Shreveport, Northwest Louisiana has lived for years with major infrastructure promises around I-49, freight mobility, and port development, while basic road conditions and regional connectivity remain persistent frustrations. Here's the question. If elected to Congress, what specifically would you prioritize on roads, freight, and regional infrastructure? And how would you make sure this district is not just hearing about projects, but actually seeing them move forward?
I believe that infrastructure is one of the main drivers that can propel Louisiana's economy into the next century. We have to have not just bold investments made in our roads and transportation infrastructure, but we have to focus on making sure that every community here has clean drinking water. 70% of the district or of the water districts in Louisiana's 4th district have a C or lower grade. 30% of the households in this district can't access the internet at home. And how can we expect our children to compete in a digital economy if they can't access the internet? Not to mention that these heartless guys who don't even buy their own groceries just pass work requirements for SNAP and a whole slate of other programs whenever people can't access the internet at their house. So we have to make these bold infrastructure investments, not just so that our quality of life improves, and that's how we bring industry and business to invest in this place because people want to live here, but it gives our economy a boost by providing good jobs that improve our quality of life. And I think that that is the name of the game. In fact, that's what government should be doing.
Conrad, we're going to take this a break. It's not fair because the other candidates.
No, I'm
got
good.
to bring-
Yeah, let's
Okay. Next question, here we go. Deals with public safety and youth violence in the wake of the Cedar Grove mass shooting. The question, what do you believe is the federal responsibility of a member of Congress from this region when it comes to guns, gun violence and prevention, and the deeper conditions that keep producing repeated violence among young people?
Could we all just take a moment of silence to, I'm going to try not to get emotional, about the children who are lost here in Shreveport and around the state. Do y'all know what the #1 cause of death of our kids is? Guns. We have to do something. And that's why I'm running on a platform like Medicare for All, because we deserve to have the mental health care in this country that people need to have. And I believe that that is one way that we stop gun violence. I support legislation that requires gun manufacturers to sell every gun with a lock. I also support making sure that kids have access to community resources whenever our families have become so fractured. How many grandparents do y'all know who are raising their grandkids? Kids don't have the support structure that they need. And so we have to come together as a community, and part of the federal government's job is to wage a war on poverty, because poverty is violence. And people who are hungry and people who are desperate commit crimes. And we have to solve this by tackling systemic issues that lead to children becoming it's so hard to describe, but for children to become disaffected and disassociated from what it means to be a good neighbor and a functioning member of your community. And I think we can get back to that. Okay. Sorry.
Come here, can I ask you a question? Do you mind?
Sure.
After the tragedy here, followed a few days later by the Mall of Louisiana shooting in Baton Rouge, did you happen to catch the news conference Governor Landry had? He was angry, he was mad, I just wondered your reaction to it.
I think that anger is something that is a natural reaction to a tragedy of this magnitude. But the thing is that you don't realize that gun violence, or you don't think that gun violence can happen to you until it does. A few years ago, my wife and I were in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the car in front of us stuck a gat out of their window and went pop, pop, pop into the car next to them. And that could have been us. Whenever I was in college, one of my friends died because he and his buddy were playing with a gun. And it goes beyond just offering your thoughts and your prayers. We have to pass real legislation that not just addresses gun safety and individual responsibility when it comes to owning firearms, but we have to provide our people with the mental health care that they need. So.
Fair enough. We'll move on to our next area of questioning. This has to do with affordability and economic pressures. Families in this district are being squeezed by housing, groceries, utility costs.
Tell me about it.
Healthcare and wages that often don't go very far or don't go far enough. The question is, if elected, what would be your top economic priority for this district? And how would you make sure that working families here actually feel the difference?
It's a multi-pronged effort to lower the cost of living. I believe that that starts with Congress reversing President Trump's illegal tariffs that are a stranglehold on every small business. And I believe, as a small business owner, that small businesses are the backbone of our local communities. And so we have to end cutting into people's bottom lines at every opportunity. I believe that we have to hold the executive accountable for starting illegal wars like the one that is happening in Iran that has led to a higher price of gas. I live in Farmville, y'all. I just paid $4 at a gallon at the pump. And I think that people's political allegiance goes so far as the gas pump. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance won on the price of eggs. And so if we as Democrats can't capitalize on the unaffordability of this moment, then we're not doing our jobs. My wife and I made a combined income of $63,000 last year. I'm on the front lines of being able to afford healthcare, of being able to pay my bills at the end of the month, and run my small business that is me living my version of the American dream. And so I'm going to support making sure that everyone has access to achieving their version of the American dream. And I think that that starts with making a more equitable society that is more affordable for everyone.
Conrad, before our last final official question, I want to ask you another aside. We talked about it earlier. You've mentioned several times. You're a farmer from Farmersville. To run for office is a great sacrifice. Can you explain some of the sacrifices you've made, your family has made?
I'd just like to start out by any sacrifice that I make is trivial because our people are suffering. People are going to die if our hospitals aren't fully funded. People are going to end up in prison for the rest of their lives because they had to make a decision out of desperation. People are going to go hungry because the gospel is in the hands of people who don't have any empathy. Guys, anyone who makes a living off of the land will tell you that it's more than a 40-hour-a-week job. We were doing a crawfish boil in Monroe on Sunday. My brother tripped and fell off of the trailer as we were loading up all of the gear, and he tore every ligament on the right side of his ankle. And that means he can't work for 8 weeks. So now I'm running the farm by myself. And I just tell that story because so many people in this district are one accident, one tragedy, one misstep away from losing everything. And we can provide a better society because I believe we have to be judged by how we treat those who have the least among us.
All right, our last formal question deals with foreign policy and congressional oversight. The House may not play the same role as the Senate on foreign policy, but it does still vote on military funding and oversight and the broader direction of American power. Here's the question. What should members of Congress be demanding before approving military action or open-ended overseas commitments?
Well, I just have to say that Speaker Mike Johnson, his #1 campaign contributor is AIPAC, and then his second biggest campaign contributor is Lockheed Martin. So it's the folks who are building the bombs and the folks who are dropping the bombs who are funding Mike Johnson's political career. And I think that that is wrong. Congress has the authority to vote to vote to go to war based on the War Powers Act. I am tired of the executive branch overstepping and getting us involved in conflicts like Vietnam, getting us involved in conflicts like Barack Obama created with the drone strikes all through the Middle East and North Africa. We have to have congressional oversight because at the end of the day, we are sending money to countries like Israel and funding their wars while they have free healthcare for their citizens, while they have free public college for all of their kids. And we don't have that here. And so we have to demand that we keep our country safe, but we also have to be against imperialism. We have had enough of that. America has never won an air war, and I sure as hell don't want to see good American and brave troops make the ultimate sacrifice, boots on the ground in Iran. I will never, ever support that.
All right, Conrad, take a breath. It's pretty hard to do what you've just done all by yourself without other candidates, and you get a little breather. But it's time for a closing statement. You have 90 seconds for that, so go ahead.
So I didn't talk so much about my concrete policy positions, but let me tell you about some of the pillars. I'm running on Medicare for all because I believe that the people of this district deserve not just to have the hospitals and community clinics, but to get the in-home health care that they deserve. I am running on a federal infrastructure bill that focuses on clean water for every community and internet access, not just for rural communities, but for urban ones too. I'm running on the most bipartisan part of my platform is my strong stance against corruption, repealing Citizens United, banning members of Congress from owning and trading stocks, and we have to stop them from becoming lobbyists on the floor of Congress whenever they retire. Because at the end of the day, this government should work for the people. It should not work for the special interest groups. And let me tell you, one of the biggest lessons that I have learned on this campaign trail, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve policy positions that make working people and regular folks' lives better and serve the interests of the special interest who fund your campaigns. And that's why I have never taken a dime from a super PAC or a political action committee. I am a grassroots funded campaign, and I am working hard every single day to give our people the representation that we deserve, because we deserve more, not less. Oh, wait. No. I forgot to mention, we have a big election on May the 16th. And so my campaign is phone banking and canvassing now. I hope that you'll sign up on my website. You can also visit Conrad for Congress 2026 to see more of my platform positions that I wasn't able to talk about tonight. And thank you guys all for being part of democracy, because your vote is your power and our vote is a right. It's not a privilege.
Farmers, though, great job. Great job. All right, let's take a break. We'll reset the stage and we'll have our Public Service Commission candidates come out. That was great. Program. This is the Public Service Commission. Candidates in District 5. Reverend James Green. Excuse me, Reverend James Green and Austin Lawson, both candidates in PFC 5. By the way, I should mention that both these gentlemen will be joining me in our KTBS studios on Friday. We're taping a full forum with all the candidates in Public Service Commission District 5, and that will replay on Sunday morning on KTBS 3. So if you don't get enough of them tonight, you can get some more of them on Sunday morning. All right, let's go with our first question here. Let's start with you, Reverend Green, on this one. It's the main question, again, it deals with data centers and who pays for them.
Open statement.
Open and say.
On what?
Open
Statement?
They get to make an opening statement.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. You guys upset me with the name thing. All right, Reverend Green, let's have your opening statement.
Thank you, and I'd like to just say good evening to everybody. I am James Green. I am the pastor of the Union Mission Baptist Church in Shreveport. I've been pastor there for 49 years. I'm currently a city council member in the city of Shreveport. This will be my 16th year as serving the people of District F. For all of my life, basically, I've been serving people. I know how to do this job. I've been doing this job, and I would appreciate your support and your vote on the May 16th. My number is number 19. I promise that, number one, I have a 7-point plan that I would ask that you all would get a copy of. And my first point on my plan is lower utility bills and rate protection. My next point is that we would protect the people, protect the pocketbook, and protect the power. I don't believe that people should have to decide whether you're going to pay your grocery bill or whether you're going to pay your utility bills. I think it is very important that you know that I'm ready to go to Baton Rouge to fight for you. I don't need any training. I've already done the job and I know how to do the job. I'm a fighter for people. And if you check my record, that's what I do. Thank you.
All right, opening statement, Austin Lawson.
Folks, well, first of all, my name's Austin Lawson. Thank you all for being here. But folks, the reason you should vote for me for your public service commissioner is simple. It's because I know what utilities really mean to so many people. When I was growing up in Coshada, we were very poor. The utilities constantly went off. My mom had to work a lot and we weren't able to afford it. Water and electricity were something you didn't always have. When I grew up, I went to college, it wasn't much better. That's when I really learned the definition of utilities for so many people, and it's struggle. I had to pick up extra shifts bartending so that I could actually afford to pay my bills. And lo and behold, my grade slipped and I dropped out of college. That's why you should vote for me. And that's why I have policy that is crafted specifically to target people who are struggling, like so many of us are. We're going to tie your electricity rate to your income to make it go down, because every family deserves to have functioning utilities. We're going to regulate the data centers that are coming to town, because like you, I share your concern about these data centers. It ties into every issue we bring up. And I want to establish a public advocate because like you, like people in this audience, I have felt so overlooked by the politicians that have seen the decay of our state for so long. If any of that resonates with you, vote for Austin Lawson. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll start with the questions now. When it gets to be the appropriate time, I'll try not to forget to close the statement. How about that? All right, our first broad area of questioning deals, and you brought it up. It's been brought up many times tonight, data centers and who pays for them. We'll start with you, Reverend Green, on this one. Here's the question. Louisiana is being asked to accommodate enormous new power demand from data centers and other large industrial projects, including major new investment in Northwest Louisiana. At the same time, regulators and advocates are fighting over whether ordinary customers can end up carrying part of the burden for the generation and grid upgrades that those projects require. So the question is this: do you believe the PSC's first duty is to maximize industrial growth or to protect ordinary ratepayers from being forced to subsidize it? And how would that principle guide your decisions on the commission?
Thank you for that. Yes, I am for people coming first. People should come first. We had data center that come up on the city council, but it didn't start at the city council, it started at the state. And so what happened by the time it got to us, then the state gave the brakes. And so therefore, when they came to us, and of course, since then, I've been able to talk to power coalitions and all of that to gain more information. We would have to hold them to the fire, hold their feet to the fire. When they came to us, they said to us that One is you're gonna get $20 million in new taxes. All of our firefighters, all of our police officers, all of our city workers, our streets and roads, they need fixing. So therefore, that was a caveat for us to look at. But on other hands, they said that they were gonna bring jobs, and they brought jobs. They said that we had people to go to Maryland to check out the facility. It came back that it was okay. For ever since 2018, we've had a data center downtown Shreveport. Nobody really knew it because it was quiet. So what we would have to do is hold their feet to the fire as to what they have promised the people. If in fact they don't do what they say, then we need to take the tax breaks that they have away from.
Let's move on to Austin. Austin, do you need me to repeat that question?
Nah,
Okay.
nah, this is actually one of the main things we talk about in my campaign is the data centers. My slogan for my campaign is a PSC for the people, because like so many people, it feels like the politicians that we have do not represent us. Whenever this data center fight was ongoing, that most people in this community are concerned about, I would be willing to bet most people in the audience are concerned about this data center. I'm glad you brought up the activists that have been working against the data center. I was actually one of them. We brought our concerns to the Shreveport City Council because we wanted to feel heard. Let me tell you something, folks. The last thing we felt was heard. We were shouted at. We were told to shut up. We were told we didn't know what we were talking about. Now they want to come to us and say we didn't know what these things really entailed. We were there telling them in the first place. And instead of just vague platitudes of how we're going to make sure that they pay their fair share, we have set in stone policy in this campaign to make sure they do it. We're going to give them their own utility rate that adjusts based on how much electricity they're using, so that working people like you and me will not have to pay an extra dime for this thing coming in. We're going to make sure that they pay for their own infrastructure upgrades, and we're going to make sure that any electricity they bring in is going to be green generated, because God knows the last thing we need here in Louisiana is another oil and gas power plant or generator. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right, let's move on to our next broad area, which is utility costs and risk allocation. And Austin, we'll start with you on this one.
Sure.
All right, here we go. When a data center or other massive customer comes in promising jobs and investment, but the utility needs new generation, transmission, or backup power to serve that load, who should bear the risk and the cost if the numbers don't work out as promised? Should it be the company, the utility, or the ratepayer?
Well, the last person it should be the rate maker. We have consistently seen our electricity rates jack up and up and up. And if you are in Louisiana, you are statistically going to pay the highest amount of your annual income towards your electricity bill. So the last thing we need to be doing is increasing people's rates. The people who need to be footing the cost for this are Meta and Amazon. If these things are such great investments like they're talking about, why can't they pay for the utility upgrades? Why can't they foot the bill for it? It seems like every single time there's an investment here in Shreveport, we're told, oh, things are going to be great. It's going to bring in all these jobs. It's going to bring in all this investment, and things are going to be great. Every single time that does not happen. We get screwed out of it somehow. It needs to end. It needs to end. And the people who need to be footing the bill for it are these not the utility monopolies, the people that are bringing in these data centers like Meta and Amazon, because they have big companies like this have continued to come outside of Louisiana, come in and screw us over. I heard a lot of people talking about resources earlier, and that's a concern, electricity, water. But what about the people? The people are Louisiana's greatest resource. And if we keep jacking up their electricity rates, the essentials they need to live, that's the resource that we're going to run out of. Thank you.
Reverend Green, would you like me to repeat that question?
No.
Okay.
Always know that they also have data centers in Bossier City. In Bossier City, when the city council passed their data center, there was nobody there at the meeting to fight against it in Bossier City. In Shreveport 2 years ago, SWEPCO built a $100 million grid on industrial, whereas all of the data centers and whoever that's in that business will be down on industrial, all the way down in the woods. SWEPCO built a $100 million grid. The grid that we're on is different from what the grid, the power, the data centers are. When the data centers come, yes, I feel that they ought to pay their own bill. But what we need to do is have the truth about it. The water that they will be getting is recycled. They will get a portion of their water from the lake, but it's recycled water. They are on the power grid on industrial. It's out there. You can see it. It's in the woods. They made a street. You'll see them out there. But there's a power grid there that they will be on. As I said before, they are also on the parish commission. When they had the parish commission, they had the city council in Shreveport and in Bossier. And so therefore, yes, they should pay their fair share, and they should pay their own share for the companies.
All right, next broad question deals with environmental and community consequences. Reverend Green, we'll start with you here. These projects do not just affect monthly bills. They also affect water use, land use, emissions, and what kinds of generating resources the state rushes to approve. Recent Louisiana reporting has focused on the scale of the power build-out being contemplated to serve these kinds of facilities. Here's the question. What environmental and community impact standards do you believe should be in place before the PFC signs off on power arrangements tied to the major data center growth?
I think all of the, everything that's available should be tied to them. I feel like all of the environmental groups, everything that needs to go along before they approve, I would be in support of all of them being connected to it before they even fill out the application.
Finished? Done?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's move to Austin, you need me to repeat?
Yes, please.
All right, here's the question. What environmental and community impact standards do you believe should be in place where the Public Service Commission signs off on power arrangements tied to major data center growth?
I'm so glad you asked that question because it ties into one of my favorite policies that I have on the commission. If we're talking about bringing communities, bringing activist groups, bringing policy groups into the Public Service Commission to make sure that the environment are protected, we need to hear from them, which is why one of the biggest policies I run on is a public advocate. It's something that we see all across the country with similar boards, which is a paid position that is there to listen to complaints from ratepayers within the state, address their issues, and bring that up at Public Service Commission meetings. Because right now, I watch a lot of the meetings, y'all. And let me tell you something, the situation is dire, right? You have the commissioners. You maybe have a first-year law student with the Sierra Club or with the Alliance for Affordable Energy, and then the rest is Meta lawyers, Amazon lawyers, SWEPCO lawyers, Entergy lawyers. We need someone who is going to be there fighting for people because let me give you a little word. The SWEPCO and Entergy lawyers are not there fighting for you. They're there fighting for the companies they represent. The commissioners are only hearing what they're hearing at their meetings. So we need someone who is going to be there listening to the community, listening to their outreach, researching these things on their behalf, and fighting for them in these commission meetings. Thank you.
All right, our next broad question deals with affordability and the PFC's actual role in that. We'll start with, by the way, Austin, with you on this one. Says most people only hear about the Public Service Commission when their utility bills go up, which is exactly why this office is important. So what is here's your question. What's the clearest thing you would do on the commission to lower or stabilize utility costs for ordinary Louisiana households over the next few years?
Stabilize costs, you said? Oh,
Yes.
easy. Two easy things. The first is, again, as I mentioned earlier, tying your electric bill to your income. I'll dig into it a little more. If you are in the audience or a working person here in Louisiana, you are going to be paying roughly about 8 to 14% of your annual income towards your electricity bill. Tell me how that's affordable. Tell me how that's sustainable. and we continue to see them increase, right? So the first step I'm going to take is fighting to tie your electricity rate to your income. It's called a percentage of income payment plan. Other states already do this. California did it for a time. Ohio currently does this with their utilities. This is something that could be done here. This is something that we could get through the commission. The second thing we're going to do is make sure that all of the outdated infrastructure that we see outside, wooden poles that are falling over, hanging wires, neglected infrastructure is upgraded and on the cost of the utility company. These utility companies make a lot of money. They make plenty of money. They can afford to upgrade a few wooden poles and make them metal or perhaps even put them underground, because at the end of the day, that cost is minimal to whenever the electricity goes out. Because let me tell you something, folks. In Louisiana, with how climate change is going, it's going to keep getting hotter and it's going to keep getting colder. What's going to happen when the power goes out? People are going to be immiserated and they will die. So we're going to make sure that the infrastructure is good. We're going to make sure SWEPCO and Entergy pay for it. And we're going to make sure that your rates are tied to your income so that they are not constantly getting jacked up every time you go to look at your electricity bill. Thank you.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
Number one, I think we should put people before profit. SWEPCO has programs whereas you put insulation in the houses. They have that particular program because your insulation has a lot to do as to how much your electric bill will be. They have this program, but they have a small amount of money in it. I feel that the program should have more money, more people should be affected by it, that they come by and they put insulation in your house. Whereas if you have an all electric house, then what happens, they will put the insulation in there free. If in fact you have gas and electricity, they charge you 35 cents a foot. I think that's unfair. I think they should be able to install insulation in every house. I also feel that they should be able to have a program that they will install windows in your house that will in fact seal out the cold, that will make your house more suitable to the cold. I feel that those programs should be put in place so that people would be able to afford. And also, I don't think that we should allow them to raise rates just because they want to profit. But I just think that there are programs that they can put in place that benefit all people, not just some people. Your zip code ought not determine where you get affordable benefits from the companies. Thank you.
All right, next question goes back to that bait and switch idea. Louisiana has a long habit of giving favorable deals to powerful industries and telling the public to trust the jobs math later. So what should the Public Service Commission be doing to make sure utility regulation does not become another version of that same old bait and switch? Austin, we'll start with you. I'm sorry, Reverend Green, we'll start with you.
Well, I think, repeat the question again.
Okay. I'll start right from the beginning.
Okay.
Louisiana has a long habit of giving favorable deals to powerful industries and telling the public to trust the jobs math a little later on. So what should the Public Service Commission be doing to make sure utility regulation does not become another version of that same old bait and switch pattern?
Number one, I think that we should hold them accountable. And I don't think that we should be giving them everything, including the kitchen sink. I think that we should have equality for everybody, accountability and oversight for all of the utility companies. I think that we should check out the power grid for all of the energy companies. I believe that what we should do is before they give anything, I think that we should have community meetings. We should have meetings like this to bring it to the people before we start anything. I think before we give them everything, we need to come to the people, explain what is going on, and that will make a difference in all of it.
So first things first, I'd like to address the idea that we need to continue selling everything off that we have here to appease big outside contractors. Right now, the main ones being Amazon and Meta. Typically, whenever our legislators see these, they They get glowy eyed at these really shiny numbers that they're going to see. Oh, look at all the jobs. Oh, look at all the money this is going to bring in. Oh, look at all the tax revenue. We need this. So let's keep giving away everything until we get it, not realizing that that is why the community is getting so screwed over. So there's a couple things I'm going to do to make sure that I'm accountable to the community in these negotiations. I'm not going to sign an NDA. I'm not going to take their money. It's that simple. And honestly, we need to be reframing this conversation rather than us as Louisianians going and begging, oh, please, Amazon, oh, please, Meta, won't you give us an investment and come bestow us with this money? Every time we do that, we are neglecting the thriving community of small business that we have here in North Louisiana that builds our community and is dying. And it is dying because our politicians are neglecting it. Because again, shiny numbers with Meta and Amazon, it needs to end. We need to be putting the community first in these negotiations, and that's exactly what I'm going to do if you elect me to the Public Service Commission. Thank you.
All right, we've reached our last formal question. And the broad area of questioning is reliability, infrastructure, and public accountability. When major new industrial demand is added to the grid, people worry not only about bills, but about reliability, whether the system is being planned in the public interest. So here's the question. What does responsible long-term planning look like to you? And how transparent should utilities be in asking the public to accept new costs or risks? Austin, we'll start with you.
So when we are talking about these projects and we are talking about bringing new things into the grid, the first thing we need to consider is how this is going to affect the people here, right? We do not have the infrastructure to continue to support these massive projects. It needs to be upgraded. Now, does that need to be on the back of ratepayers? Absolutely not. As I said earlier, people like SWEPCO and Entergy need to be the ones paying for this. If they're working with Amazon and Meta to make this project happen, they need to be the one who's paying for it, not the ratepayers. The ratepayers don't get a decision in this. They're monopolies. Do you have a choice to pay Entergy or SWEPCO every month? No. If you don't, your electricity bill goes off, right? So they need to be the ones footing the bill for this. On top of that, we need to make sure that community engagement is paramount when it comes to these decisions. That's why I advocate for a public advocate, because who knows better than what that community needs and what their concerns are than that community. Thank you.
All right, Reverend Green.
I believe that if utility companies can raise rates, they should also raise standards. But let me just be truthful to you all so that you'll understand. There are 5 public service commissioners in Louisiana, 5. At this present time, there are 3 Republicans, there are 2 Democrats. I want y'all to understand real talk. There are 3 Republicans, there are 2 Democrats. Foster Campbell has been on the front end. Devontae Lewis has been on the front end fighting. All that we say here, we make it real simple, like we can just go there and snap our fingers. One, it takes the process of negotiation. It takes the process of politics as to who gets what, when, where, and how. You got to have the right people in the right place that know how to negotiate standards to get things done. The way in which things are done are sometimes more important than the thing itself. When we talk about up here what we are going to do and have no experience in doing it before, once we get there, it's totally different. If you want to know why your rates are high like they are, you got 3 people on one side and 2 on the other side. 3 over here, 2 over here been fighting, the other 3. What you have to do is learn how to count. One is this, you got to count your votes. And if you got 3 Republicans who's making these deals and making this happen, talk, don't care who talk. We can talk all we want, but you got to have somebody there that know the inside and out. Thank you.
All right, time for closing statements. I didn't forget.
Thank you.
All right, we'll start with Austin on this one. 90 seconds.
So one question that comes up a lot in this discussion in this race is experience. I'm a young guy. I haven't held elected office before. So a lot of people are concerned. Well, let me ease those fears for you. I've been an activist in the Shreveport, Bossier City area. I kind of got the mixed up there, sorry, for a few years now. I have been on the front line of these arguments. I've met, and now that I'm running in the race, I've met with the public service commissioners. I've met with politicians in the area. I've told them my plans and they like them. I've talked to policy experts in the field. They like my plans. However, none of that matters because the people who really like my plans are the voters whose doors I go and knock on 3 days a week with my campaign. When I bring them these policies in simple ones that anyone can understand, everyone can understand how it helps them, they smile and they get excited. And that's something a lot of people haven't felt in politics now. A lot of people feel like they are overlooked, they're neglected, and they're not listened to. Well, let me tell you something, folks. I have been an activist in the Shreveport-Bossier area. So imagine how overlooked and neglected I have felt. Just as much as you have, folks. Which is why when I get in this position, I know what people need, I know what they want, and I know how to get it done. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. Austin Lawson for PSC 5 is what I'm running on. Austin Lawson for PSC seat 5 is my website.com. You can go there and read a bit more into the policies if you want to see the nitty gritty of it. And you can reach out if you have any questions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm James Green. As I've said before, I've been on the city council, not consecutive terms, but I've been on there now. This is my 16th year. The reason that I've been on there is because, check my record. My grandmama, I was raised by my grandma and my grandpa. She said, and they said, your word is your bond. I proved to people that I would keep my word. I answer my own phone. If you look at District F, it's different now than what it was when I came because I've made a difference. Because when I go to City Hall, I make sure not just to fight for District F, but for the fight for the city of Shreveport. I ask that you would check my record. I ask that you would check my word. I live on my word. Your reputation is better than a room of money. When I started this race, I prayed about it. When the people came to me, they asked me to run. I went into my prayer closet and I said to God, Lord, I don't have the money they have, but I got you. And I'm for the people. I'm a fighter for the people. For all of my life, I've been fighting for people. So I ask that you would give me an opportunity to go and fight. If you check out my 7-point plan, I bring a new light to public safety, public service. And so get my 7-point plan. I promise you everything that your heart would think about doing is on my 7-point plan. And it's just not talk. I believe that through the help of God and with my background and with my record, that all of these things could come possible because I've been a fighter for the people all of my life, and I will go to Baton Rouge with the other commissioners and fight for you. Through Christ, all things are possible if you believe. Thank you so much. I'm number 19 on your ballot. God bless.
We have one question, Card.
Uh-huh.
All right, it's, do we have any of our Senate or congressional candidates? I don't think we do. It's about human rights violations in Gaza. I don't think you guys want to answer that.
Are any of the Senate candidates or Conrad still here or have they all left? They cleared out? Okay.
Okay, hey,
Okay.
I appreciate all you being here tonight. My name is Jeff Feinform with KTBS3. I need 2 people to volunteer to talk to me on television. Take about 30 seconds each. Just to get some reaction on what you saw here tonight. Need 2 folks.
All right, before y'all leave, let's give all of our candidates a round of applause. Call your attention that there are also constitutional amendments on your ballot, May 16th. Be an informed voter. Talk to your friends, encourage voter turnout. Thanks for coming tonight. We really appreciate y'all.
Appreciate it, man.